The first live People I Know show episode on Facebook. Mr. Bradley, I think I can see you. Can I hear you?
Yes, I think so, unless you have me muted. Can you hear me?
No, not yet. I think I'll mute you later when I get bored with the conversation or something.
There you go.
All right. Well, I'm learning all kinds of new tools here. It's amazing. We spent so much time together just a few weeks ago that I thought, okay, when the time comes to have this conversation with you, we can just get together in my house or your place or wherever, and we'll record it. But things aren't that way right now.
It doesn't look like it. No, a lot of things have changed since we returned from our traveling together, and it just keeps changing every day. So, no, this is kind of cool doing it this way. So we can definitely give each other space and do our due diligence, and no social, interaction within a meter or 2 meters, whatever it is. So, no, this will work.
Yeah, I think we had enough time together in Europe that having more space isn't like we're needing more time together anytime soon. I had a good time. Let's not make a point that we didn't have a good time together, and we can chat about our trip, but I think it is okay to have a little space here until things get normal again.
I agree.
So what I'm doing now, something I haven't done before, and I have to draw attention to it because I'm not quite capable enough yet to do it without saying anything. I'm trying to share it back to my Facebook page, my own account, and it's going to take me just a moment. So Bradley, tell me, as I'm doing this, explain how your life has changed now since, I'd say, about the middle of March, when the state began to shut down. The governor imposed different rules. And what, since that time, have you been doing, and how has your life changed?
Well, that's a good question. I'll buy you some time while you're figuring out some of the technical stuff on your end. I've changed a lot in terms of I don't go out and go grocery shopping as often as I used to. I only go probably once a week now. I am fortunate enough where my full-time position right now allows me to work from home. So I'm doing a lot of Zoom calls and conference calls with all of my clients and my customers. So I did that before, but now I'm just doing that, primarily. And I haven't gone to visit a customer in person for about almost 3 weeks now. And it's a little different having that conversation without being able to see them sometimes, because sometimes they don't like being on the video, so you just hear them. And when you're in sales and business development, you have to read some of their nonverbals, and the nonverbals aren't there. So I can't tell whether or not they're agreeing with me, or whether or not they think that, hey, I'm just wasting their time. So I kind of miss not being able to see them. So even while we're talking right now, I can see whether or not you're interested. You are interested, but you're still interested in making sure that, hey, I got to get this live on my website, and that'll even be cooler. But I still got to listen to Brad,
So I think that's something, as someone that's been in broadcasting years ago, something I kind of get good at, because you need to be into the conversation. You still need to have some awareness of what's coming next. And I think that happens with any kind of conversation. And we can chat more about your background with communications and psychology. Like, people are doing this all the time. It's very clear right now that I'm looking not at the camera. One thing I did well this week is I set up this big monitor that I had from years ago that I hadn't been using. But now, instead of doing it on this screen in front of me, where it might almost look like I'm looking at you, I'm looking at this big screen over here and trying to learn something new. So yeah, this is, and Ron, this is another tool. So we got some tools here. Your buddy Ron, I've not met him, but he asked, what about going live on YouTube as well? That is something that I intend on doing. I've done that a couple times before. I can do that with this software that I'm using today called StreamYard. Of course, they're giving it to me for free, and that's why their logo is attached to the upper corner of Brad's head for the entire conversation. but I wanted to see how well it worked before I paid them for it. And I think this is a good time while we're kind of all stuck in place more than usual to try some new things. So I thought, hey, let's do a live podcast. It'll go through all the same podcast locations beginning tomorrow. But in the meantime, try something new. Try out this StreamYard, see if it works for me and for my purposes. And if I think it's good enough and I want it to go to YouTube Live as well or some other locations, I can pay them their $20, $25 a month for now and see how long I need it. But these are cool tools that are out there, and I'm happy to have you on the other end to try this with me.
So I feel so used again, time and time again. Just feel so used. You're going to use me for this. No, I'm glad to be the guinea pig. That's fine. We can work this out, and I'm glad you can use our interview to figure
see how long I need it. But these are cool tools that are out there. And okay, cool. Yeah, I just started a watch party on the Facebook, so then it started talking to me. Now we're good. Now let's have our conversation. Everything I'm going to do is done. I've got it recorded here. I've got the video there. Now we can get into more of the conversation. So explain more than you're having these conversations at home with your clients, and you said you've done that before, but now you are there every day. Are you getting sick of it, or like being at home, or what's your mental, your attitude and your mentality and your focus and everything? How is that? How are you adapting to that?
It's actually difficult. The last 3 weeks, I've been the busiest I've ever been with my company, and it's this last week and a half. I have breakfast about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and then I have my lunch about 6:30 at night. And I have to get into a routine where I give myself and force myself to get up from the computer and do something else. Otherwise, I'm sitting there the whole time, and I don't like getting into that routine, because by the time I'm done, I have to get something to eat, my lunch basically, lunch and supper, and then I really don't have time to work out. I have to, de-stress for an hour or two, and then by that time it's 10 or 11, and I go through the whole thing again. So the last 2-3 weeks have been pretty tough, and it's forcing me to change my schedule and make sure that I have to give myself that break, because it's just, otherwise I could just be nailed to this screen all day, talking to clients, talking to my customers, talking to colleagues, and taking care of business. And I need to get away. So that's one thing that I have to change. The other thing that I do have to change is get outside a little bit more. Even though we want that spatial distancing, I can still go for a bike ride, still go for a walk. As you know, a couple days ago, we had 60-degree weather here, and I could have brought my motorcycle out, but I didn't, because by the time I was done working, it was already 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, got to eat. After that, then the sun's going down. So I definitely have to change my schedule up a little bit, but I'm sure I'm not the only one who's, trying to find their new norm with this, environment today. So.
What about your diet and eating habits? I know there was a time not too long ago that was one of the biggest focuses of your life. And then, of course, we were in Europe for 2 weeks, and I'm a witness. That kind of went out the window. It always seems to go out the window for me when I'm traveling. For you, it seemed to as well. Being at home so much, I'm finding that I'm just eating more often because it's so convenient. And I wish I wouldn't, but my normal life, I'm gone a lot, not home, not like with food within reach of me. Now it is, and that's a struggle for me. And watching Facebook and memes, I'm thinking this is a common occurrence for people, that suddenly their time able to eat is way more than it used to be, and we're all probably challenged with that in some way. How's that going for you?
Well, I was going to say, now that you mention it, that you are kind of sitting farther back from the table than normal. I don't know why that would be. No, for me, I think ever since we went traveling, I've allowed myself to eat a little bit more of the things that I normally wouldn't. And now that I'm not going to the grocery store as often, then I'm forcing myself to eat anything and everything in the house so I can avoid going to, the store. I've reached a point either today, tonight, literally after this interview, after this broadcast, I'll probably have to go to the store because I am running out of certain things. But to answer your question, no, I've allowed myself to eat, and the people that know me, I usually eat pretty healthy, but I've allowed myself to eat a little bit more and more starches and more breads. And I'll have to adjust a little bit, but I'm having fun. I had ice cream last night. I'm going to have ice cream again tonight. So I guess there's a silver lining to it. It's allowing me to eat some of the good stuff. And you only live once, I might as well eat. But I don't want to have to sit this far back, in the future. I want to keep that nice physique. So thank you for asking, though.
It's hard to tell. So I can do some tools here on the StreamYard. I can back it off just a little bit, but I don't know if that really adds to what we're seeing from either one of us. When you mentioned the ice cream, just yesterday, I've been running a lot. Like I am a runner, I suppose, because I compete in at least one 5K every year now for 8 years. And I've done one 10-mile competition. And just a couple of weeks ago, realizing I had a lot of time and I was in the house all the time, I decided to start running. So then I started running with 1 mile, 1.5 miles the next day, 2 miles, and so on. And I was adding a half mile every time I went out, and I was going out basically every day. And at a certain point, I decided that this is getting probably to be too many miles to run every day. So now I backed off a little bit, where I ran 6.5 miles 2 days ago, took a day off, ran 3 miles yesterday, and I'm going to run 4 miles tomorrow and then 7 miles. So I'm going to add up the two numbers to build up once a week going a half mile further. I'm coming up with this on my own. I'm sure there's some running experts that could give me some better advice, but I'm just trying to be creative on my own. But anyhow, I was going to run yesterday, and my roommate came home or called me just before and said he was stopping at Dairy Queen and is going to get me a Blizzard. And I can't say no. I mean, I could say no. I didn't want to say no to that. And I was about to go for the run. So I had to run like 2.5 hours later after I ate the Blizzard. So these are the challenges of being home too much. Some of them. There's a lot of them probably.
Yeah, I found that you didn't turn down any of the food that I got for us. So you always had to eat it up. And I remember the couple times where we did have to run to try to get to our next visit or get to the plane or do whatever. And we both did some running near the end there. So I think both of us are still in pretty good shape. So,
yeah, the running 7 mile, like I'm going to run 7 miles in a few days. I'm realizing that my foot hurts when I start the run, which is my main indication. I thought maybe I shouldn't run this many miles every day. But by the first mile, I'm loosened up and I feel pretty good. Cool.
No, that's good. And I know that you used to do a couple bike runs with a colleague of ours. I kind of invited myself to join you guys anytime that you have those bike runs. So I'd be more than willing to do that this summer as well. So
yeah, the bike has not been pulled out of the garage yet, but it will be very soon as a way to not run all the time and still get outside active most days.
Yeah.
So are you willing to get into your main job a little bit more? I had a couple questions about that, because in addition to doing your job differently, it sounds like you have a lot more complex things going on with shipping packages throughout the world, the way that things move, not just people move. Like people aren't moving anymore. So it sounds like to move packages, they're not moving in the same way.
No, they're not. And it's no secret. I can tell everybody that I work at UPS, been there 17 years. I'm in business development, and right now I'm focused on the international. So I'm an international account manager, and especially with what has happened as a result of the coronavirus coming to the United States and the world, first of all, I have to remind everybody that the reduction in passenger flights going down 60 to 70%. We, as well as our competition, lease out space on those planes. We have our own brown tails, of course. But as soon as you cut off 60 to 70% of the passenger flights, that is a huge, huge reduction in capacity. On top of that, then you have the cargo flights as well, and those have been reduced about 30 to 40%. So now that China is back up and running, we import a lot from China. And so many of our customers are calling me, and saying, hey, I need your help to bring in this product. And it becomes a challenge because there are weight capacities that are divvied up to each of the shippers in China. Per shipper per day, you're allowed 300 kilograms per day or 100. It changes daily based on capacity. And so my life on the UPS side has changed dramatically. Not only not being able to visit them in person, do it through a Zoom video audio conference, but also getting these fires put out and helping them get their product. And a lot of people are thinking, well, what do they bring in from China? I don't need new computers. I don't need any laptops. I don't need any of that stuff. Actually, what's happening is more and more of our customers, and you probably heard it here domestically, they are changing their manufacturing to either bring in product to make masks or full suits, PPEs, personal protective equipment, anything like that. And a lot of that comes from the Asian countries and over in China. So we have a lot of customers that need to bring in the material, and so they can actually make it, or the finished goods that are already over there. And so our government and the Chinese government have worked together to prioritize these PPE, products, and they take precedence over, I got to bring in some sneakers. I got to bring in some, other apparel. The PPE takes precedence over any of those to try to help each of our countries out. So I'm proud to say that UPS is doing a lot behind the scenes, not me personally, but we're bringing in a lot of additional flights to bring all of that equipment over, as well as the PPE, equipment and the garb that everybody has to wear. So it has changed. I mean, ever since I came back from traveling with you, we've been thrown into this because it slowly got worse and worse. And I think you're well aware of the curve and trying to flatten out that curve. And we're not even into the peak yet. I think the peak is supposed to be the 14th or 15th next week. So a little less than a week from now, hopefully it'll reach the peak and then slowly plateau and then come down again. So it's been very busy. It is complicated because we have to fill out certain forms for FDA regulations. Not anybody can just ship these, materials in this product. You have to get FDA approval, both on the receiving end in the United States here and on the shipper or origin end over in China as well. And China recently put together their own requirements over and above FDA as well. So it gets into the political side of things, as well as just, hey, we need to help each other out. So it's an interesting time.
And would you say day to day, are you more staying ahead of it, or are you just constantly putting out fires? And
No,
just try to not let things get too far behind.
I would love to say that I am all the way on top of it. I'm ahead of it. I'm usually well organized and I'm pretty efficient, but I'm still drowning. I'm still putting out fires, still putting out requests for quotes, and I'm still trying to help our customers. And they see me as an ally they can come to me with some of their problems and requests, but I'd love to be able to provide the solution right away and help them. But sometimes I have to wait until the next day to get some approvals. So we do prioritize because the space is so limited. I can't have one of my large customers, take up the entire cargo space of our plane. We have to divvy it up into, different areas and make sure that everybody has access to certain, space in our planes as well. So.
And as people are popping onto the live video here on Facebook, if you have a question or a comment, definitely put that in there. There's some comments from Vina and Ron already. One that I put up, I'm trying to learn on the fly, use some of these tools that this StreamYard has, just seeing what this has to offer. I think I'll do more of these to learn since I have the time. I'm home, and like you're working constantly. I suppose you can employ me to help you if you think I could help, because I really do have a lot of time right now. I'm not working. I'm working on projects, trying to be healthier, at least athletically. I think I'm eating worse, but working out more, as that can happen sometimes. But I have time on my hands, and trying the live video podcast is one of the things I'm doing tonight. and I'm going to bring on more guests in the future, just with different people that are dealing with, like, we're all dealing with some level of change. I think with some people, what they do, there's huge levels of change. And I've thought of a few people that I'm going to invite on, that just to get some perspectives, like, oh, I never thought about what's this person doing right now. And I think it's kind of interesting, at least to me it is.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, what I like about your shows, and I think your audience realizes, is you have a wide variety of guests on, and you get to know the people that you interview a little bit. They get to know you during this, but you bring a different perspective, and I appreciate you having me on and having everybody else on, because, like you said, everybody has a different way of dealing with this situation, and they're impacted in different ways as well. And everybody has a different view of it. I'm fortunate, like I said, I still have a full-time job. I still miss not seeing everybody on the weekend during our weekend job. And, we still stay in touch on Facebook and other social media sites and stuff. But, it's different than seeing them in person and catching up with them and finding out how they're dealing with everything and their life is, how it's impacted. So I think it's important to, stay connected with people as much as possible during this, even though we can't be, with somebody, physically right now. So I know that I'm still working on other projects behind the scenes. So I know that you have a little bit more time than I do, and I like staying active, but my other projects are keeping me busy as well. I almost feel like I'm not spending as much time as I could with those other projects, but after 10, 11-hour days, you need a little break, and then you need to, focus on other things. So that's why I had to be careful scheduling this with you, because I knew yesterday there was no way I was going to be able to make it work yesterday. I didn't get done until 7:30 or 8 o'clock. So today I forced myself to finish early and get ready for this. So.
Well, let's bring in one of those other projects here a little bit. Mastersinpsychology.com is the website I'm about to pull up here. This is something I've heard about for a while that you've been working on, and you've claimed to have launched it here recently. I don't know how you found the time now, especially the way you're describing what's going on, to get it launched, but maybe knowing that you'll be on my podcast was a motivation. So if so, I'll take on that. Regardless, I'm going to try to pull that up here using the tools of StreamYard. Nope, that's not what I want. I want that one. Nope, that's not what I want. I want this one, I think. No. Come on. There it is. All right. That is Masters in Psychology. So on this site, as we go through it, and there's, of course, people listening to this on audio only right now, you can go to mastersinpsychology.com. Tell me why this is a thing and why you're behind it.
Well, I can't take all the credit. I have another partner of mine. We've been working on this for quite some time. It takes a while to put everything together, do all the research, but mastersinpsychology.com is our website. We're trying to do a couple things here. Number one is we're trying to allow people who finish their undergraduate degrees and they're interested in psychology and continuing on for their master's degree in psychology. We are trying to be the number one resource for them. Just go to one website and you can find the 25 most affordable doctorate degrees, 25 most affordable master's degrees in psychology. And we have it broken down by state. We have it broken down by branches of psychology and by degree types as well. And then we also have some top psychology resources in the United States. And so all you'd have to do is literally click on your particular state that you're interested in, and then it would actually go into a little bit more detail of all of the schools that are available in that state. And then we kind of rank them in terms of the cost and the money involved with how much it's going to cost to finish and enroll in a master's degree in psychology. Now, it's also nice because we also have the links to their websites as well. And then we also talk about some resources that you can utilize. And, for those of you who are watching live, you can see Curt kind of scrolling through some of these, the resources, some of the degree programs, and then, of course, some of the schools that are on there as well. And, a lot of people might look at this and think, well, it's not as flashy as some other websites out there. It takes a lot of work and time and effort to, A, put all of this information on there, and B, kind of put it in a spatial sense on the website, because there are certain programs you have to use to actually convert what you have in your mind or on paper or on Word or anything, and then convert it to how it looks on an actual website. And so, some of the people might be familiar with WordPress as one of the ones, and we're using WordPress, one of the newest versions of WordPress, to bring everything to life on our website. And then you also have to think about, well, how else are we going to help the customers of, not only, and I use customers, I'm still in the frame of UPS. How are we going to help all of the people that are interested in going on? And that could be anywhere from, people that are still working on their undergraduate, others that are already in their master's program, others that have gone on to other advanced degrees as well. But we wanted to bring something else to the website. And so I'm actually in charge of the blog posts, and I'm in charge of the podcasts. And so our goal is to actually go in and provide some good resources and information for those who are in the academic field or those who are practicing. So I mentioned earlier, my mom was a licensed psychologist. And so it's not only for those undergrads who are going on for their master's degree, it's also for those people who are in the academic world. They're psychologists, they're psychiatrists, they're counselors, they're volunteers. A lot of people volunteer in a certain capacity to help out in that psychological approach and help people overcome some of their fears of public speaking, overcome their fears of any kind of anxieties. And so it could be people that are employed in the academic world. It could be people outside the academic world in their own practice, other people that are working for the government, and then, of course, those volunteers as well. And so our resources are going to hopefully be beneficial to all of those people I just mentioned. And we're also going to interview many different psychologists, psychiatrists, those people within the academic world and outside as well. So I'm kind of in charge of the podcast. I shouldn't say kind of, I am in charge of the podcast, and I'm in charge of all of the blog posts. And so I'm excited. I already have a list of all of these viable candidates who I want to talk to and with and bring onto the website, and possibly even do some live broadcasts as well, but we have to build up to that. And our goal is to have them talk about timely topics that not only reflect what's happening in today's society, but also what somebody who's interested in getting an advanced degree, what kind of questions would they have? And then we bring that to the forefront and provide some answers from those who have been there, been through it, and now are out in the world practicing, in a private practice, or they stayed in the academic world. So it's kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but I appreciate you bringing up the website. It's one thing that we're proud of. Just today, I was talking to my partner who was working on making sure that some of our social media links were working. So we have LinkedIn up and running. We have Facebook. Now we're working on Twitter, making sure that that's up and running. And once all of those are up and running, then we should be good. So you notice if you hover over the Twitter, it doesn't work. Facebook isn't live yet. We just had it tested. LinkedIn, and then we'll obviously go into the feeds for any of the podcasts as well. So no, again, I appreciate you bringing it up, but that's one of the projects I'm doing. And I did stop doing some other things to give myself more time to do this. And so right now I just have the UPS and then the website. And then if and when we are allowed to go back on the weekend and start working on the weekends again in that entertainment gaming industry, we can do that again. And that would be a third or fourth thing on my list. So I'm kind of jealous of you, Curt, that you're saying, oh, I have all this time. It would be nice if I could say I had all this time. I don't have all the time. So
I have too much time right now. I can say that clearly. Or my structure, I'm working on my structure to get more out of each day. I'm not like upset at myself when the day passed, like I didn't do anything, but with 24, like everyone has 24 hours in a day, but I've never really had 24 hours in a day. And I do now, like in the same way in any adult point in my life. Like previously, if I have time off, and I'll pull down the website now, mastersinpsychology.com. if someone wants to check it out. And I'll go back to our just us on the screen. But like, if I've ever had time off, it was when we were on vacation, for instance. When I'm not working, I'm gone. I'm somewhere else not working. It's weird to be on vacation, and it's not really a vacation, but I guess in a sense it can be, depending on how you use your time. When we're like not able to go to certain places we used to go all the time. So I had one more comment on that before. Then I want to get into our trip a little bit, and I'll pull some photos up here on our live video. But with me not going almost anywhere besides running, I think I've driven my car 3 times in 3 weeks, something like that. The car, my brand new Toyota Prius of just about 2 years ago, I bought a brand new Prius. And a big thing on my podcast and most episodes is I like to have guests on with me that have impacted my thinking or my actions in some way. And a lot of guests have impacted me or influenced me in a few ways. And among the things, maybe the first thing you really influenced me on, Brad, was when I was in the market to buy a new car a couple years ago. You were pushing pretty hard on me that I should get a Prius. And I think I'd considered it. I maybe would have like gotten some more thoughts on that. But if not for you, I would not have gone to the particular dealership and the particular salesman that you bought it from. So I think without you, I would not have a Toyota Prius right now. So explain to me, remind me again, why you were so convinced that I should get that car. And a couple of years later, we can, I guess, each give our perspectives on how it's gone with your Prius and my Prius.
Well, let me ask a question of you first. Do you regret making that decision and get that Prius?
No, I love the car. And
okay,
I wouldn't have gotten a new one, most likely. In fact, you were the one, you let me, I don't know if maybe I talked today, but Josh Torgeson, who sadly passed away about a year and a half ago, he went with me the day I bought the new car. Without him that day, I don't think I would have gotten the new car. But without you, I wouldn't have even gone to the dealership the first time a few days previously. So it was a combination of him and you that got me to decide this is okay. Not only can I buy this Prius, but I can buy a brand new one. And no, it's been a great car. Every time I tell someone my miles per gallon, like almost everyone's just blown away. Like you can get 50 plus miles per gallon, and I'm underachieving. I'm at about 53 miles per gallon. I know you're like way ahead of me. So I'm either my foot's a little heavier, or you're that Prius driver that all the people that don't like Prius drivers especially hate, because you're really working the car to perfection by not pushing it any harder than you would want to for solid miles per gallon.
So I'll answer your question that you asked before. So what led me to get a Prius, and then what led me to kind of push you to get the Prius as well? That was the first time I ever bought a brand new car. I usually always buy used because, hey, as soon as you drive a new one off the lot, it depreciates automatically. And so I thought, well, I deserve a new car. I might as well look at it. And I started doing the math on it and the calculations, and I could have bought something used that I didn't know how it was treated, or something could go wrong with it, anything. And now I should preface, for those of you who may or may not know me, I had a hybrid before I got the Prius. So I actually had a Honda Civic hybrid, a 2003. That's the first year they made the Honda Civic in a hybrid. And I bought that one used at about 70, almost 80,000 miles. And back then I was getting 44, 45 miles to the gallon. Back in those days, that's huge. And even today, it's still very good mileage. But I eventually drove that into the ground, and I retired it at like 315, 320,000 miles. And so I definitely got my use out of it. And I definitely was going to get another hybrid. And I actually went out and I looked at all of the different hybrids. I test drove about 4 or 5 of them. And surprisingly enough, when I was sitting in the Prius felt the most open to me and with the most room. And even today, I'm 6'4", a little bit over 6'4", 215, 220 pounds. And now I still don't have my seat all the way back I still have it forward just a little bit because the leg room is that much, and I still have room above my head. So that was a big contributing factor into why I chose that one. And the other reason is that it is a hybrid versus a full battery. If I, you know, I'm in sales, and so I'm out visiting. Well, I was out visiting, customers all the time. I can't run out of battery if I'm out there driving. So I definitely needed to cut that out of my, prospective cars. And so I came back to the hybrids, and then again, I drove all of them out there, and the Prius seemed to be the best one that fit me the best, and it actually had the best gas mileage, and I wouldn't be caught, someplace and with a dead battery. So that's why I went that route. But I should give credit to my mom, that she said, Brad, if you're going to get a brand new car, you might as well get all the bells and whistles because you're going to be in it all the time. And at that time, I was not only driving for UPS, but I was also doing Lyft, and I wanted to be comfortable. And she said, Brad, you're going to be in this how many hours in a day? You might as well splurge and get the best Prius out there. So that's what I did, and I love it. I enjoy driving, and I look forward every day that I go out there and I get to drive this car. And to your point, I'm not the person that is slow on the highway. You saw me, you know how I drive. We can talk about that later, but I am not the slowest out there. But if there's nobody behind me, then I let off the gas and I let it go a little bit more. So my average, if you go in it right now, it's probably, I think it's 57.5 or something like that. And when I first got it, I was averaging 59 and 60. But now that it was winter, as well as I do, it goes down a little bit, but I'm still in the 50, 57, range. And even if you go up and down one, if there's an error of 1 mile, I'm still well above 55, 56. So no, I really enjoy it. I know that I saw yours. Yours is a nice one too. I like it. You got the nice color red. I got my Blizzard winter white, and I have the sunroof. I have the upgraded speakers. I rock out on that thing. Leather seats, heated, everything you can want. So I love it. So that's why I went that route. And the reason I was pushing you to go that route is, A, you weren't sure if you should go used or new. And like I said, when you go new, you can actually get 0% financing. And so it's free money for them. Now, people are going to come back and say, yeah, but you have to pay more in the long run. Yeah, you do. But what's nice about it is you are covered. You have that insurance on that vehicle. And so if something went wrong, you're covered, versus I still have a lot of friends that have used cars that something goes wrong and they have to come up with $1,500, $2,000 just to keep it running again. So, there are many different reasons, but you and I sat down and we did the math a little bit for you, because you were doing more of the Uber and Lyft than I was at that. Well, for a while, I was doing as much or a little bit more because I really jumped into it at the very beginning. But on average, you were doing more. So we just figured out the miles, and it would pay for itself. The ROI on it was clear to me. And so I think that's the main reason why I pushed you to go ahead and get it, because you'd be able to see the return on investment much, much faster with that thing versus some of these other ones that were not a hybrid.
I have a difficult time making certain decisions. So I created a spreadsheet, and maybe I showed it to you at the time. I can't quite remember. With my previous car, with some other cars I was looking at, some estimates in there based on miles per gallon and different fuel prices. But it was clear over the life of the vehicle, or over not even the life of the vehicle, over a certain amount of years, beyond like 5 or 7 or 8 years, yeah, which I plan to drive this thing as long as it's a good car, however many miles that is, that by far and away the best value was the Prius, even though it costs more up front. Mm-hmm. So I got my 0.9% interest rate, so not quite zero. And yeah, I feel like that's free money, because normally I like to pay things off right away. But with this, no, it wouldn't make any sense. I'll pay as little as possible for it for the 5 years of the loan. And when the 5 years are up, I'll be driving that baby for free, basically, until it stops running. And hopefully there's a lot of years left. And I appreciate your influence on that. And had it not been such a big jump for me to buy a new car, I probably would have done what you did and spend what $2,000 or $3,000 more and get all the bells and whistles and leather and heated seat and everything else that yours has that mine doesn't have.
Now, I should say that since we returned from our vacation, I did pay off my Prius, so I'm done with that, and everything is just icing on the cake now, and it feels good to have that paid off. So,
well done, sir.
Yes.
Well, so now anyone that has questions about being a future Prius owner, now you have at least two people they can reach out to, either Bradley or I. Now I'm going to pull up my screen sharing again, and we'll learning on the fly how to do this again. Okay, so we went on this trip, and I'm going to pull back here a little ways, different photos that I've posted online. What was it like traveling with me? What did you learn about me over 2 weeks that you didn't quite realize until then? I'm curious to know, and I think it's fair that anyone else gets to know what you learned.
Are you sure you want to ask that question?
That's fine. I think it makes it more exciting for the audience.
Hey, I must say that a lot of those pictures are very good. That one on the right now, I think that's one of your favorite pictures right there. You know,
this one?
Yes, I think that's one of your favorites. And look at that! Look at the clarity of that thing. You know, that phone must have been a nice camera on that phone, don't you think?
Yeah, I was fortunate for you to have purchased the brand new iPhone right before the trip, or not long before we left on the trip, so I could get some good photos out of it.
Yeah. So to answer your question, all fun and games. We had a great time. I can't speak for you. I had a good time. I knew right when I met you that you had a good heart. You and I clicked right away because we shared some of our stories of traveling, and I love traveling. You love traveling, and we kind of joked with each other and said, hey, if we're going to travel in the future, let each other know. And for those of you who don't know, I kind of mentioned this to Curt that I was going to go see my daughter while she was traveling, and she was going to be out in a certain area at a certain time, and we were going to try to meet up. And I mentioned it to Curt, and there was a long pause, and he said, well, if you're looking for somebody else to join you, I could possibly join you. And I said, yes, of course. So yeah, we had a good time. We can talk about some of the specifics that we, certain places that we went to, certain people. I think the overall trip was great. The only downside I can think of offhand was I accidentally left my watch at your friend's house, and I had to use my own company, UPS, to actually pick it up and then get it back to me, and that added a little bit more time. But yeah, there's the Tulip Museum. For those of you who are watching right now, I enjoyed that. I didn't think it was going to be a big deal, but there are so many different kinds of tulips out there, and then the history of the tulips, and then there's some of the canals, and we took a tour on the canal and met some people from all over the world on the tour as well.
And that was Amsterdam. So we had a 8-hour layover in Amsterdam, and I think for 4 or 5 of the hours we got into the city and did stuff, which is the way we planned it. And only ways it could have gone better is if I would have done my research on the Anne Frank house and known that we needed tickets way in advance, or what, Van Gogh Museum. I think we might have done that as well. And I didn't do any of my research like I should have. Otherwise, we would have never gone to the Tulip Museum, except, okay, what do we do now? We looked across the street. There was this Tulip Museum. We walked over and thought, for 5 years ago, do this little tour. And it was cool to learn about how big tulips were back in the day, and why, even though they originated somewhere in, I think, China or Central Asia, that now Amsterdam in the Netherlands is like the biggest producer.
Yep. No, I didn't know that either, and you wouldn't have found that out unless we walked into that Tulip Museum and found that information out. And if they were local, I would have bought some of the tulip bulbs, because some of them were pretty cool, and I would have brought them home. But that was at the beginning of our trip, so there was no way I was going to haul that all over the place. But yeah, you're right. Van Gogh and the Anne Frank house, if we had known better, we would have been able to go to both of those as well. But I mean, just look at these shots. I mean, it's cool being able to visit these places, and if you see something on the news or something, I always tell my friends, I've been there. It's cool, not to brag or anything, but just to recognize, and it brings back the memories of when you've traveled to these places, and it brings back the culture and it brings back the experiences. And picture is worth a 1,000 words. The stroopwafels, I wouldn't have even done anything like that, and you found this place, and this was actually good. I could have eaten 5 or 6 of those. Those were very good.
As it's on the screen here, and for those listening to this as an audio-only podcast later, you can, I think, do one of 3 things. You can hear explanations and be satisfied, but if you want to see these photos, go to my personal Facebook page, or I think for sure my personal Instagram page. It's at Curt Pics, Piks, as in People I Know Show. I don't know if anyone even knows that secret. It's kind of a play on words for Instagram, but I put these photos up there, and it should all be public, at least on Instagram. It definitely is. And you can look through, like the stroopwafel. I don't know what a stroopwafel is, but as I've learned from traveling, and these are some traveling tips that I've learned, and you can share some of your own, Brad, that I'm in a new city. I like to do some research before I go, but if I haven't done enough research before I go, I Google to see what other people say are the things to do, the things to see. I had been in Amsterdam, and we'd already tried a few things that we couldn't do, like the Anne Frank House and Van Gogh Museum. So what do we do as we're walking around? Someone said the number one thing to eat was a stroopwafel, and I didn't know what that was, but we first went to a few places that were selling them, but they didn't seem legit. Like they seemed pre-made and not quite what we're looking for. So using Google, we were able to find this place, Melly's Stroopwafels, and we got the authentic experience, and these were delicious.
Yep, they definitely were. And one other thing that I'd add is that, if you don't want to use your cellular coverage or your minutes or anything like that, there are multiple applications out there where you could download maps, and then it would still use your GPS and give you directions to certain areas or certain places. And so you could actually do that. Now, what's cool about this picture, for those of you who aren't seeing the visual, this is a picture of one of the canals that we probably went down, traveled on, and you see, some of the greenery on the side there, even though some places, we still had some snow in certain areas. You still have some of the green grass there. And then you have a wide variety of vehicles. There's one van, a large van, a medium-sized car, and then you have all these motorcycles and mopeds as well. And so the other thing that I should highlight here that he probably brought up, and maybe I don't know if you did this on purpose, Curt, but in the middle of the screen on the in the middle there, you see UPS. So thank you for pushing UPS again.
The photo you took, one of them, and I used
it. I took that photo because there was a UPS truck, and so anytime I go to any other country, I try to get some pictures of the UPS, truck or drivers. And the one thing I didn't bring with me was my UPS ID, and I go up to a driver or somebody else who's a UPSer, is what we call them, and I'd show them my ID, and then we'd have that link right there, right then and there. We'd be able to connect, even though we might not be able to talk to each other. We'd be able to recognize that ID and then take a picture, and that's another way to connect with other people. So it's always fun to connect with other people, and I think you and I both enjoy doing that when we meet other people and find out where they're from, what they're doing, what they're up to, what their life is like, and then we learn from that, and we definitely come back, and we don't take what we have for granted anymore, because you see a lot of people that are in different kind of situations. And so that's part of the reason why I like traveling is opening up your eyes a little bit more, and you don't have the blinders on anymore. So,
and to understand how different cultures, how they do things differently. So this photo is another great example. There's a lot of bicycles in the background in Amsterdam, maybe, I think more than any other city I've been to. I've been there twice now. It is a biking city. You mentioned the van and the UPS truck. I wouldn't want to be a UPS driver in a city like that, because I think a lot of the places you end up going, the streets are just not designed for vehicles of that size. You can fit there, like it's big enough usually, but there's not all this space. Like in the United States, the country's so big, especially outside of the downtown areas of the major cities, you can get around pretty easily no matter what you're driving. But in some of these cities, they are designed for small vehicles at best, and a lot of people might be driving a moped or some other kind of motorized bicycle or otherwise, just be on your bicycle or be on foot.
Yeah, and believe it or not, that UPS, depending on where we are in the country, we do actually have mopeds, we have bicycles, we have hybrid vehicles that are both moped and bicycle driven and mechanical as well as battery operated. So depending on where we are in the country and in the world, we do have different vehicles that allow for us to accommodate. And I love this picture for those of you who are just listening to the audio. We were walking and we saw this parking ramp, 3 levels, and no, motorcycles, no cars, nothing on there. All of it is just bicycles. And so that shows you how valuable they, look at this type of transit and biking, and they build these, that's 3 levels right there.
It's right by the train station, the big central station, instead of like a big park and ride maybe in Minnesota where we live, where everyone parks their vehicles and gets on to the transit. You're riding your bicycle to the train station and you're getting on it from there. Or maybe you took the train into the city and you're bringing your bicycle with you and leaving it behind. I'm not sure if that's the case here, but there's these types of ramps for bicycles. It's every train station I went to in my previous time, mostly, it's like, whoa, where do all these bicycles come from? It's because basically everybody, that's how they're getting from point A to point B and connecting with the mass transit.
Yeah, you're going to have to pull out your bicycle at some time, Curt, so we got to go biking.
All right, we can do that soon. I'm going to keep bouncing through these photos here, and we can mention as I pull up to this one, there's Mariah Moss, your daughter, and I guess the reason for our trip, the 3 of us, on a mountaintop in Athens, Greece.
Yep.
And this, I think, was one of your favorite early adventures in photography. We found a bunch of turtles at this, what was it? I forget what kind of a park it was, but you were watching the turtle for a while eat its grass. And this might have been my photo, might have been yours, but it was pretty cool to get it in the zoomed in slow-mo like you did.
Yeah. So this is just the picture, but the video is actually cool because, I'm not plugging iPhone or anything like that, but it was kind of cool to get the 4K going. And then not only that, but I was able to get the slow-mo. So, even though the turtles are slow enough, when they're eating, they actually chew pretty fast and they actually, outstretch their neck really fast and grab some leaves. And it's actually cool to watch it in slow-mo as well. So yeah, you're right. That was the first time that I actually used the slow-mo function on my iPhone during that trip with these turtles. So it's kind of cool. You got to see all the detail on the turtles and on the leaves and everything. And then all these museums that we went to. We just saw a lot of different cultures. And then here, of course, was our first night in I think it was
the Airbnb.
Yeah, that was our first night, wasn't it?
Our first night was technically on an airplane flying to Athens.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
We had an overnight flight from Amsterdam. But yeah, then for most of our meals, usually Mariah, sometimes Ro, would cook a great meal at the Airbnb. When this was a picture of one of those times. Then later in Athens, we went to so many of the ancient ruins, and it was in the back of this photo, it's the Acropolis, where we met Kiki, like right in this space. And Kiki was a guest on episode 69 of the podcast a few episodes ago from Kyrgyzstan. We met her there and saw her on the inside of the Acropolis and became friends with her. As that's what I'll think about anytime I look at this photo. It's like within a minute probably of meeting her.
Oh, you don't think of me. That's great.
No, because you're already in it. I don't need to think of you. You're in so many of my photos. And this was the Parthenon, which disappointingly, it's huge, it's cool, but when you get close to it, all you see is scaffolding and construction stuff in the background. So it's kind of hard to get a photo of that without it in there. And this actually I liked it better. The Temple of Hephaestus, which resembles the Parthenon. It's not quite as big. That was at one of the other locations of the ancient ruins, and this one is in better shape. I would say maybe they did some work on it previously, but to the eye, you can tell something about it, I guess, just I look better to me. I think.
Yeah, and you don't really appreciate the length or depth of that last structure that we were just looking at as well.
It's hard to take a photo of these things. They're so huge. Like
it is. Yeah, they are. But it is interesting, and just to know how old these structures are, it's just unreal. We think that some of our old houses in the United States are old. They're not even close to being old compared to anything else that is out there. I mean, I'm not even talking about just some other houses. I remember traveling in Scotland, England, and Brussels and parts of Italy, and just the houses there are much older than the ones that we have here in the United States. And there's, of course, that was a nice picture of all of us and Kiki there and Raya and Ro, and we were on the top of I think it was the something bar restaurant, Kaka Bar, or what is it?
360 Cocktail Bar.
There you go. Yeah, so that was nice to be in there. But again, if we didn't travel, we wouldn't have met Kiki. We wouldn't have met a bunch of people on that. We're still keeping in touch with. So yeah, it was definitely fun. And then this one was fun for everybody involved because this was the music museum, and you got to see all these old instruments that were both some of them you could recognize, some you wouldn't recognize, and you would say, well, what is that? And I know that my daughter and Ro really loved seeing some of these because these were the stringed instruments, and they both like playing guitar, but they had wind instruments there as well. So
yeah, you got to hear, they had some audio set up to hear some of those. I went too fast there. Yeah, so we ended up taking so many photos together that I would joke that these were our engagement photos, Bradley. If we were to have an engagement photo, which I don't think we're going to because it's not neither one of our plans for anything in life, this would probably be my favorite one.
You think so?
I don't know, just the colors of being in the park, the National Gardens of Athens. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, this was a good photo. This was good. I like that one that Kiki was in because we played around with the portrait mode, and so we focused in on our faces, and there's a nice fountain. We saw so many different fountains in different areas during the trips, but this one was kind of nice. You saw the fountain pretty large behind us, and then all three of us. One of my favorite photos is when I got Kiki to laugh a little bit, and she had to cover up her mouth and her face because she was embarrassed. So that was a nice photo of us too.
And that's the end of my Athens photos. And I guess we'll keep kind of going through these mostly quickly, and we can stop on the occasional one. These here are from Balos Beach and Lagoon. I would like to be in Crete during the travel season to see what it's like there. The day that we walked down there, it was not easy to get to. The colors were amazing, but it was so windy. It was gorgeous. The water, like these, and some of the other photos, the secret's out. I used a filter from Instagram or Facebook or something. These, no filters. The color of this water was just something I don't think I've ever seen before anywhere else in my travels.
Yeah, a lot of the bodies of water that we saw, the oceans and everything else, you could see the water and the different colors of the water. And I didn't use any of my filters or anything on any of my shots. The ones that I shared with you, I think you did use some filters, but some of my favorite ones are, and it's too bad we can't show any videos on here, but you already know where I'm going with that. One of the first days that we got there, we went to a beach and we saw some waves, and I was able to get some good video of the waves. But there's a nice photo there of all four of us, you, me, Ro, and Raya. And we took our rental vehicle, our small little car, way up high on these mountains. And then here's a shot of us with the ocean behind us, and some more videos and pictures along with that. So it was definitely fun. I don't know if you heard, but about a minute ago you heard a ding. I don't know if that ding was somebody who was commenting or if somebody was asking a question.
If they did that, it was probably no. if someone wants to interact with this, there's an actual live feed of comments on this live video. I think if someone's commenting on my personal Facebook page, it's a little harder to capture at the moment. So if you want to comment, I can bring a comment onto the screen. If someone does comment on the actual live broadcast comment location on Facebook.
Yeah, I see. I'm sorry for interrupting. I do see that on the right now. And so I see the people that have been helping, like Vina. Vina has said, yeah, the StreamYard is good. And she was saying hi earlier. So yeah, this is one of our favorite cats that we met. So those of you who can't see any pictures, we were visiting a castle in an area where this one cat was very, very friendly. And I think Curt, you got a little jealous because he latched onto me as soon as he saw me. He was with you, but then when I came into the picture, I think he followed me for a while.
We spent so much time together. We got away from you, was roaming these castle grounds, and it's a huge space. And I found this cat, and the cat became my best friend for about 15 minutes. I was talking to the cat and singing to the cat. And then eventually I decided I could try to find the rest of you. And then I found you, and the cat went with you and left me behind. I was kind of sad.
No, he was very nice. I was actually surprised that he was in such good shape, being, a homeless cat. But the weather there is. He has
the greatest home of all time.
Yeah, he had that whole castle to play around with, and I'm surprised that dog that we eventually saw there didn't find that cat and try to chase after it. So
we went to another beach on the drive over to. Man, I can't even think of the names of these places anymore. After a month or so, I forget everything. But we found a beach, and the photos I'm going through here. Again, the colors, man, you see I've seen these in photos before, colors like that. I don't know that I've ever really experienced just the different levels of blue right in front of me. And then the water, the sand beneath it, the way the sun hits it, all that, of course, impacts the colors. But that was pretty special. And we went there out of season.
Yeah, we did, and it was still fun. And for those of you who are, listening in or will listen in later, I do have pictures of Curt actually going into all of the bodies of water that we went to. And so if you need proof that we were actually there, and this isn't a photograph or anything, I do have proof that we were actually at these places. So
fair enough. And I suppose for the audio version, I'll upload a few other photos that haven't been a part of this yet to demonstrate some of these things that we've talked about. This 2,000-year-old olive tree, that was kind of neat. I went inside of it, except I wasn't agile enough, and I got my pants all dirty.
Yeah, no, that was interesting too. I didn't know how old the olive trees could be, and when you talk about olives, we had a lot of good olives out there as well. But I didn't know that those olive trees could get that large and that old as well. So that was interesting.
And now we're suddenly in Denmark as I go through my photos. We were in Athens for 4 nights, Crete for 3 nights, flew to Denmark for 2 nights. And this was right before we actually left there. We went to Mols Bjerge National Park. I'm sure I didn't say that with the proper Danish accent. But we went for a lovely walk together.
Yeah.
It was kind of cold, actually. But we did well, I think, and I encourage everyone, no matter, and maybe this is a good time to do it because there's obviously parks that we're allowed to go to now if you have the time, and different hiking trails and such. We had some hours remaining before our flight, and that day we made the most of it, I think. From the moment we left, we went for a walk around this park for an hour or so. And then the next photo on the screen is the long walkway to the castle back in the distance here, Kalo Slotsruin, the Kalo Castle. And we had to hustle. I wanted to get to the airport like an hour and 15 minutes early or something. We got there about 45 minutes early. It was fine, but I was like running down this rocky pathway, which wasn't good because I think I turned my ankle once.
Yeah, and earlier in our conversation today, I mentioned that we both ran a little bit, and this was one of those times where we tried to walk a little bit, and then we ran a little bit more, and then we realized, oh my gosh, we're staying too long here. We better get going, and so we started running back to make sure that we hit our flight. So, yeah, that was fun. So, yeah, very good photos here. What a good camera. My gosh.
And good photographer, I guess. And here we stayed the 2 nights. The reason we went to Denmark, and I don't know how you'll travel in the future or how other people travel, but for me, I needed a couple of reasons. I had never been to Greece, and you were going to Greece. And I was going with you, so that was perfectly fine by me. And then we were going to go to Sweden, as we'll get to. But Denmark, my buddy Tibor, who I met in Australia, lives in Denmark, and Denmark's close to Sweden. I thought, if I'm ever going to visit him, I'm going to visit him on this trip. And I told you what I was thinking, and we negotiated on how much time we thought we could spend there, because you were leaving your daughter to come, go see my friend on your trip that I joined you on. But you decided to trust me, and I think you had a good time there, and I think you're glad you got that experience, but you can tell me.
Yeah, we had a good time there. I was glad that you introduced us, and your friends were really nice. They were very, very hospitable toward us. They actually made one dish one night and then another dish the other night. And so Yuki on her night made homemade. I mean, you see the platter there, for those of you who can't see. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows of probably 8 to 10 sushi rolls. And so among the 4 of us, we were able to finish off all of those sushi rolls, and that was very good. And then the night before, Tibor made he's from, where is he from again?
Hungary.
He made a Hungary goulash that was very good. And you and I just kept eating and eating and eating. And, they shared with us their experiences of coming together, meeting and getting married, and then working and deciding to live where they live, which is kind of a remote area, but it's very convenient for where both of them are working. They don't have to drive. They don't have to do anything. They could literally walk. Yuki could walk to work, and then Tibor could take his bicycle to work. And it's very, everybody has their own way of living, and they don't have to use any of the car. They don't have any car. They don't need it. And there's another wonderful shot of all of the sushi, as well as some of the chicken that they had for us. So yeah, I was glad that I was able to make it with you to meet those 2. I of course cherish the time that I was with my daughter, and I'm glad that both of us made it home and we weren't trapped anywhere. And I was glad that Mariah could make it home just in time before they kind of locked everything up in the States here. So yeah, we had a good time.
And of course, Tibor and Yuki living nowhere near the city caused us to kind of need to rent a car, but that gave us some advantages too, because we were able to see some things we wouldn't have seen if we were using public transportation there. So I like when we didn't need to have a car, but in Crete, seeing you drive like a crazy man. Did you get any mail from the Crete authorities
I didn't get anything. And what's interesting is, I'm laughing because there were times, we call them police traps here. They did have police traps in Crete on an island of all places. And I didn't realize until maybe halfway through the trip that they had those police traps. And I was probably going over the speed limit a couple miles.
A couple kilometers an hour. Yeah. Couple. We saw the Aros Art Museum. That was cool. And I think I posted a couple videos of the colorful circular roof. I forgot what they call it exactly, but that's something I've never seen before. Just like you walk around in a circle and you get to see the city through the filters of those colors. And this is a photo of it from above at night.
Yeah. So we had somebody comment in the live section. He did say speed traps, and I recognize who that audience member is, and he probably realizes that I speed a little bit too, but he actually speeds a little bit more than I do, actually, surprisingly. But yeah, you wouldn't think that I would have ended up with a Prius, but no, it was a good buy. Street food. This was one of my favorite places.
This was in Aarhus, Denmark, second largest city in Denmark, a place you've probably never heard of unless you've been there, but it's, doing my research later, the second happiest city in the world, according to the happiness index. The people there are the second happiest in the world, only second to Helsinki, Finland. And it was a great city, very clean, a lot to do. And this place like this, we were looking for our one Danish meal. And I Googled it. It took us a while to figure out how to find it, but that's a whole another story. But we got to this street food place, and inside of it, there was, I think, 23. I was talking to the guy that ran the Danish food place, 23 different vendors in here, all kinds of different food. Really a great venue. And we settled up on the traditional Danish food, had 3 items there. And we did one thing we got really good at, Brad, sharing food. 3 plates, 2 people, and we just both ate off of it. And I appreciate having someone to travel with that's very willing to share, because not everyone is like that probably, but I like to try different things. And we shared like we were siblings or significant others or something. We're just really good friends, apparently. We got to be good friends sharing food all trip.
Yeah. No, it was, I enjoyed that as well. It's almost like we didn't have to figure out our rules. It just came naturally to us. Whenever we sat down, we always kind of said, okay, here you go. Here's your portion and here's my portion. And we just shared everything because we wanted to experience everything and share that with each other. And I didn't get fed up with any of your idiosyncrasies, anything like that. I don't think you got fed up with me either. Or maybe you did. I don't know. Maybe off the air you go, oh my gosh, that's the last time I'm going to talk to Brad, have him on my show or anything. But no, I think we worked well together. And to your point, there are some people that you may not want to travel with, or you already know, hey, I can only spend so much time with that person. And it goes for both women and men, so I think everybody's a little different, but you're not keeping up with your live comments here. That same person who talked about the speed trap said, you can't speed in a Prius. Oh, I would challenge that. I would challenge that for sure.
I don't have any speeding tickets in my Prius, and I doubt I ever will, because I don't like to, because I know it's not the way you're supposed to drive that car, but I have, I guess. It's super rare.
Yeah. So I should comment on this. My dad is really into clocks and watches and everything. And we went to a watch museum that actually showed all of these old watches and old grandfather clocks. And it was kind of cool to see all of these and the mechanics behind it and how it originated and how it evolved. And I should, I'm leading up to your time, and where I'm going to go with this, but it evolved into all of the newer watches and the newer grandfather clocks. And then it eventually showed some of the newest watches that were out there. And we saw some watches that actually caught Curt's attention. And for a day or two, we were kind of having a search, kind of not a full-fledged search, but anytime that we were walking around or we searched and Googled to find out if we could find this particular brand and style of watch. And we actually went into about 3 or 4 different stores. And I think you would have actually bought one of the watches if they had the right color and the right design there. But we didn't find the one that you wanted. And to this day, I was going to ask you, did you ever go back and try to find that watch that you wanted?
No, I haven't. And since I'm not like making money right now the way I normally do, I've decided to not go in search of that at the moment. I'm going to pull up onto the screen here. It's called a Picto watch. I think you can see it.
Yep.
Yeah, I like this design, and I will eventually buy one of these, probably. I don't know which color. I haven't spent a lot of time on it. Once my finances are back into some sort of normalcy, I think I'll end up buying something. I like the simplicity. It's got one dot in the, the 10 o'clock spot, and just one hour hand. And I think it looks sharp. I think it's kind of modeled off of a more expensive brand that you might be familiar with, but this one is more my style.
Yeah, it's almost Art Deco. When I first saw it, I saw that it was kind of Art Deco, and it's very simplistic, colorful. It has an appeal, but you and I have different. I would rather go with something else, but no, that's a nice looking watch, and it's simple, and everybody has their tastes and preferences. But it was interesting nonetheless to see the evolution of watches and pocket watches and grandfather clocks in this watch museum. So
that was at Den Gambleby, and I think I'd pulled the photo up before. Old, they had what, 1870s, 1920s, and 1970s, something like that. You just walked through time, and in one of the old buildings, they had the old clocks and stuff. And it was a really cool place. It took a long time to go through it, so by the end of it, I think we're both kind of sick of it because it just took so long. But it's really a cool place, and probably something that if you're there longer, or you live there, or you're near there, you can go see it a few times and take a little more time and not feel so rushed to get through everything. And here we are. So many times, it's something you don't do in the United States, I don't think, unless you have like your own private jet, and maybe you have one, Brad, and I don't know about it. You board from the tarmac and you get on the little ladder into the plane, which is always kind of fun.
Yeah, no, I was going to say it, it was fun visiting all the places we went to, but we did kind of feel rushed at the end of a lot of them because we got so enthralled and interested in what we were doing. And then all of a sudden we'd look down at our watches and figure out, oh my gosh, we got to get going here because we got another thing planned. And so here's our Sweden picture, and you rarely see me with some hair on my chin like that, but I allowed myself to go ahead and grow that out. But this was fun to see Megan, and Megan was on a previous episode. Was it 70 or 71?
That went out.
Yeah. So Megan actually used to work with us in our other job as well, and so it was kind of nice to see her, and your interview with her was interesting as well. And then this place, she brought us to this graffiti park, and she hadn't been there for some time. And some of these pictures, if you're not watching this, go on to the website and go to his Facebook page and see some of these pictures, because this is graffiti. These are spray cans. It's not brushes, it's spray cans. And that's what really hit me on a lot of these murals and these pictures. Like that one, look at the depth and look at the reflection. And these are all done with spray cans, just the artistry and the mastery of being able to do all that. It was fun to go to this place.
And something I didn't mention when I posted these things to Facebook and Instagram is these masterpieces get painted over all of the time. Like Megan had one that was her absolute favorite from the year before, maybe 2 years before. And we were looking for it. She couldn't find it because it was gone. They paint over these things and they're so amazing, but they're there for a while and then they move on to the next one. So that kind of blows my mind because they're really good. We got to see some people, like, I don't know if they're practicing or it's kind of for real. I don't know how they like designate which space you get to paint over, but we saw some people out there doing that. And the thing to me that was so surprising was this was a Saturday morning, like 11 a.m., maybe close to noon. We were one of just a few people that was there that wasn't to paint.
Right. Yeah. As you recall, Megan was explaining that, there's a main walkway that are the prime, canvas areas. And the owner of this place actually tells people, hey, you've earned the right to be on the main street and you can paint on these main areas and thoroughways. And then the places that are on the inside where you have to kind of find on the other side of the fence and the gates and stuff, that's where you get to practice your skill. And we saw a lot of people practicing, and even on the inside, I was still impressed with all the people that were, painting some of the murals on the inside, because those were just as good as some of the ones on the outside. But I guess you have to earn your right in order to paint on that main thoroughway or walkway.
Yeah, I didn't catch her saying that. That must be quite the privilege. But then again, those are going to be painted over after a while anyhow.
Right.
What else do we have? Yeah, a few more that I posted here on Facebook, fewer on Instagram. Photo of us in front of one of them. Yeah, they're just so detailed. It's really cool. We went to the Royal Armory, which was it was a free museum. There's a lot of free places to go, probably in most cities, but we found several in Stockholm, seeing the royal armor and the history stuff from hundreds of years ago. walk through that place in maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours. It wasn't that bad. Like for time, we could really enjoy it and also be done with it. That's what I like. I want to see something really cool and then not have it take forever. And that was a good opportunity to do that. Later that night, we went to, what is it called? Eifer Krog Inn Bar. It's a Viking bar. All the wait staff, the workers dress like Vikings from hundreds of years ago. And there's a video that's attached to this where you and Megan are climbing over the table because that is the way you're supposed to leave the table if you're not on the end.
Right. Yeah, I remember that. And I remember questioning. I'm telling the guy, are you sure I'm supposed to walk on this table? Yeah, that's what you do. And so it was interesting and fun to do that. In America, you usually don't do that. I guess I could share a story real quick to let people get to know me. I actually did this one time in America. I stood on a table while I was in North Dakota, and one of our audience members knows about this, but I wasn't supposed to stand on the table, and I got in trouble for standing on the table. But here at this place, what's nice about this, Curt, remember we had to go down in the basement, so it's almost in the cellar. We went to a few of these places and these bars that were down below the street, and they each had their own special theme and feel and attraction, and all of them were always busy. But this one was fun because the people that we met that night, their husband, well, one of them had a husband that was actually in the band and playing in the band at this place that night as well. And then I met a fellow teacher. I was a teacher for a long time, and we talked a little bit about the education system there and what she was teaching. And so we kind of related that way. And again, just stepping on the table and leaving, everybody sees this 6'4", 6'4.5" guy, tall guy standing on the table. It attracts attention. So
when you go to Stockholm, go to the Old Town for your nightlife. Go to the Old Town, and there's so many of these bars that have the cellars. This one was different because of the Vikings stuff, like the Viking hats and the layout, but there's others that we went into that you have low ceilings and it's like cut out in a way that you normally wouldn't have a bar in these spaces. You would never see that in the United States, maybe in like northeastern part of the country, possibly in New York or Boston. There might be things like that, I'm not sure, but it's not going to be commonplace in most of the country. Here in the old part of Stockholm from hundreds of years ago, they put these bars and restaurants into these places that have so much character that would be one of the things, if I'm back there, when I'm back there, that I'll make sure I go to a few of these spots.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. They would convert these old, houses that were so old and so many different rooms and characters. The character of one bar compared to the next was just unreal. A wide variety, and you wouldn't have even thought of, oh my gosh, is this the entrance to this place? And then all of a sudden you get down in it, and oh my gosh, it opens up, and you see all of this, and the food was good, the drink was good, and everybody was so very friendly to us. And we didn't really stand out. I don't think we stood out too much as tourists, but who knows? Maybe we did, but everybody was friendly nonetheless, and was more than willing to talk about where they're from, why they're there, why we're here, and we kept talking, and this was a picture that shows us enjoying. What is it? Fika, yeah, is just another way of having coffee time, a respite. Getting out and getting away and having a relaxing time, and we had three of us there, so it was Megan, you, and me, and we went to this muffin bakery, and Megan wanted us to try one of her favorite items. And do you remember the name of it?
Oh, I don't remember anything. I can visually remember it, but the names, no.
I remember it, and I something heavenly something, I want to say it was, or
Princess Cake.
What was it?
Princess Cake. Now I remember.
Princess Cake. Yeah, there you go. And
that's
so
this one over here with the green and the white.
Yeah, so that was very good. And then I decided, well, we might as well get 3 or 4 more other choices because we wanted to try a lot of different things. And instead of just getting 1 or 2 things, we ended up getting 4 or 5 things. And I liked all of them. So it was fun. Of course, that didn't really fit into my diet or your diet.
No.
But,
well, by the end of the trip, it was the diet.
yeah.
And I think Megan was embarrassed by how many things we ordered, because that's not a normal fika. A normal fika is to like each get a coffee or tea and then maybe share a treat. And we wanted to try everything, so we got way too many things. But fika, I'd never heard of it before going to Sweden, but it's an important part of the culture where daily, several times daily, they take these coffee breaks. But the purpose is to like really socialize and more intimately, usually with one person, maybe 2 people, to meet together and bond with the people in your life and really take time out of your day, every day, a few times a day to do this, something that in the fast-paced culture that we experience in the United States, I don't think most people go about it that way at all.
No, I agree with you. We definitely don't do that. I mean, we do get together, and some people do, have lunch and stuff, but fika is a little different, where you just have your coffee or tea and maybe something to whet the appetite. It's not really a huge lunch. It really isn't a lunch. And then you can take multiple fikas throughout the day and socialize and give your body and your brain a break. And then you feel refreshed. And that's the goal, is you feel refreshed, you feel connected, and then you can go back to work and be efficient going back to work.
More fika, please. I like that. A few more photos from Sweden, and then we'll get to the final part of the conversation. Some colored buildings in Gamla. That's a part of Old Town, Stockholm. And something we noticed, and we're on a couple of walking tours, is, as we learned, there's these lion statues. They're all identical, I think, all parts of the city. They are there to indicate a pedestrian area. Like, you can't drive your vehicles past those places. They're to protect the pedestrians. And they had something that happened like 6 or 7 years ago where someone, I think, purposely drove down a pedestrian area. I don't know if they had as many of these since then, but they certainly do now, to indicate both where you're supposed to walk and also to protect from vehicles to even possibly get in there. So that was something that we learned by doing the walking tour, things that otherwise we would have seen a ton of these. And if we went to Googled it or thought about it, we would have never known what the lions were for.
Yeah, the tour guide was interesting because she gave the history behind it. And I do recall her saying that, hey, these were around before this accident happened, but somebody actually, they had some injuries and deaths. And since then, they actually put more and more of these up to make it obvious that, hey, you're not supposed to be driving in these areas. So we wouldn't have even guessed that unless, they told us something about that. So, yeah, it was interesting to see all of that.
Well, Bradley, let's get to my final part of the podcast. And you can tell me if you want to do both segments, one of them, because I've got the personal growth segment I normally do, being wrong segment, but I know that you have other things that you might want to get to. So it's up to you at this point in the conversation.
I am good. You're in charge here. This is your interview. So whatever you'd like to do, I'm good. I appreciate taking the time, and time flies. Here we are, almost an hour and a half into our conversation. We probably lost a lot of the people watching live. I don't know if Vina is still out there, or Ron is still out there, or anybody else is out there, but thank you for holding on. We enjoy talking to each other and sharing a little bit, but I'll leave it up to you, Curt. If you want to go down one direction or another, that's fine.
We can go down both, but before that, and this is going to serve for us, like years from now, I'm going to make sure this video and this podcast remains, for me at least, and for you also. We can remember our trip together. We're doing it publicly, of course. It's a podcast. There's a few things in this conversation that I think can be really helpful to other people that, are looking to buy a new car or to travel or are looking for a degree in psychology, a master's in psychology, different things that we talked about, and plus us getting into what we're dealing with currently with everything that's going on in the world with coronavirus and so many things shutting down. But on a personal level, I have so many of these conversations now that have been captured with people from my life. And I advise people to do something, do your version of this to capture moments with people that have been and are important to you, because at some point we're not going to be able to. And I'm really pleased that I have it. And I mentioned our mutual friend Josh Torgerson earlier. We recorded conversations weeks, months, and literally 2 days before he tragically passed away in a car accident. And I have that forever. And that's something that I've learned throughout this, that it's special that I have that. I can always, if I want to hear what he has to say, at least I can go back to that. So on a personal level, it's been really important. And that's one of the personal growth things that I learned about myself by having a podcast, that it's worth it. Reach out to people, talk to people, and whoever happens to be interested in listening to me have this conversation, it's almost a certainty that they're taking something out of it. And that's why they're listening and continue to listen. From you, though, I'd like you to share something from your life, a personal growth story that you think is important to pass along to others.
Yeah, it's not really one instance or one story. It's just gradually learning that, when you're growing up in high school and even college, and then you start your job or you travel, at some point, I realized that it's about connecting, and not only existing, but connecting. And so, and being in that space and that time and focusing on that other person or that group, instead of just kind of going with the flow, because you take for granted, and you even alluded to it, you cherish the moments that you share with people, but it's also a bonus when you have it recorded, whether it's audio or visual or both. You can look back at it, just the pictures. I was, scrolling through all the pictures of just a month ago, and some of them I forgot already. And oh my gosh, we did that. And it brings back those feelings. And so one thing that I've learned is that you need to have that eye contact and that connection, and really listen and try to relate. Don't just listen and nod and then think about what you're going to ask next. We have to do that a little bit, but you do have to have that connection so you can relate and so you can connect. And I'm using all these words, and a lot of people are thinking, well, yeah, I've heard that before. But what I really mean is, hey, I can share a story with you because A, I feel confident and comfortable talking to you openly, and B, I do that because I trust you, and hopefully you trust me back. And then that way, when you increase that level of trust, you can open up a little bit more and be yourself, and then they can truly get to know you and still accept you. And then that bond even grows even more. And so, you said at the very beginning, before we went on that trip together, you said one of two things are going to happen, Brad. Either we're going to grow closer, or we're just going to grow, further apart. Well, I'm glad to say, and I knew it was going to happen anyway. We are closer after that. We've gotten to know each other. We respect each other. We've gotten to know each other and our family and our history, and we can go to each other and trust each other in the future as well. But it's difficult to do that, as I mentioned earlier in our conversation. That's why I like being in front of people when I'm out there talking to them, my clients. Even though I'm there for a reason and they're there for a reason, we can still relate and we can still communicate and connect. And I'm glad to say that a lot of my customers from years ago, who I had in 2 or 3 territories ago, still reach out and say, hey, I need some help with this, or I need your advice on this. And then I ask them, well, why are you still calling me? I'm not your account manager anymore. Yeah, but I trust you, so it's those sort of connections that make you feel like you are worthwhile and you're not just doing a job. You know what I mean? And so that's my growth kind of lesson, is try to connect on a personal level with your friends, and obviously be selective with those friends, because not everybody is ready to have that connection, and they could take advantage of that and take advantage of you.
That's great advice, and really similar to the advice that I came up with yesterday after having a conversation with my siblings and my nieces and nephews. We had a little Zoom conference call, to kind of see what everyone was doing and see what we could work on. And I drew back to the word connections, something I wrote down about a year ago, and realized I have more time right now than normally. And I have been connecting with people somewhat, but it can be a focus of every day to reach out to one or two people that maybe I haven't in a while. So that's something that's going to be happening more for me. And maybe that's for others. If they have more time right now, now's an opportunity. Maybe not for you. I know you're super, super busy, but for the people that have it, you got to find those opportunities in life where you have extra time, and how are you going to use that time? And I'm realizing that I have more time I could use wisely, and I'm going to do more of that. So thank you for that. And now the being wrong segment, Bradley, you had the opportunity to witness a few of my podcast recordings. You were very nearby for the 3 or 4 of them that I recorded, 4 of them on our trip. The one, little does anybody know that when I was talking to Megan, that you were up in the top bunk, I think, sleeping part of the time. We put you to sleep. But anyhow, for the being wrong segment, you've heard me go through this several times before. What is a story from your life where you've changed your mind and you can say the old Bradley was wrong?
I actually honestly haven't thought about this, and so I wasn't ready for this question.
Come on.
So you're asking for an example where I was wrong and I learned from it.
Yeah, and realizing that other people may not have realized that perhaps they're wrong about the same thing right now, and they haven't even thought about it. So that's the point of it.
Okay. One thing that I realized quickly was whether or not we realize that we have these blinders on, and what we think is right or wrong. And I saw that Ron came up and said, "Oh boy, where to start?" He's a good friend of mine. Ron and I go back. But one thing that I did realize, and I still realize when I'm talking to people, is that we have these blinders on, and we always view things from our perspective. And it wasn't until some people would challenge me on my perspective that I wouldn't realize, yeah, you're right. I didn't think about it that way. And it could be about anything. And so a lot of times I play devil's advocate, and I think, okay, while I'm talking to them, I am listening to myself, and I'm trying to realize and think about how are they interpreting me right now, and how are they going to take what I'm saying right now. And then I start to think about, well, they could be thinking about it this way. And then I try to add that perspective into it, or I just stop mid-sentence and I say, you know what? It just occurred to me that you might be thinking this. And then I try to answer that or address that. And so it's not necessarily that it's wrong, but I think that we as a human, it's just human nature to share our experiences from our angle, our perspective, but we always have to be aware that there's always a second, third, fourth, and fifth perspective on the same exact topic, or even the same experience. So even though you and I had these experiences together, your experience was a little different than mine because of your past history and your past experiences, and now it comes together. And you might not have. You even mentioned, I didn't hear Megan talk about the Main Street being the premier canvas. I think you were off looking at the dinosaur picture one behind the car there, and so we have pictures of those. And I think she and I were talking about that. So I experienced that differently than you did, and similarly, people that have a different experience, a different culture. And nowadays, we used to call the United States the melting pot. Now it's called the salad. And I'm sure there's something else that it's called now, because the melting pot meant that you were losing some of your identity. Whereas in the salad, you still have your identity and it's distinct, but it still adds to that whole, the bowl, that whole experience in the whole United States. And so I'm always realizing and always thinking, how is this going to be interpreted differently from a different perspective? And how can I play devil's advocate all the time? I think that helps you learn empathy a little bit more. and sympathy as well. And those are two different things, but you can learn more about sympathy and empathy if you take another person's point of view, and try to do that actively instead of afterwards. You always have that hindsight is 2020. Oh, I should have said this, or I should have done this, or I should have, reacted this way. Well, try to do that live while you're talking to that person, and then you can have that connection. And when you have that connection and you're looking at that person's eyes and reading the nonverbals, some of the nonverbals are universal across the world. So you're going to be able to recognize happiness, sadness, frustration, anger, all of that. And so while you're feeding off of that nonverbal, start to think about that different perspective. So you try not to offend that other person. And I'm not saying walk on glass or don't hold your ground or give your opinion, but try to do it in a respectful way, and they're going to realize that, and then they're also going to respect you in kind. So I think that's my best first initial reaction to you asking me that question. Is I keep continually learning from that and learning from other people, and especially traveling, you do learn from other people as well.
And it ties into the connections too. The better you're able to do that and use perspectives in the conversation, you're likely to be able to connect with people better, because they're going to appreciate the way that you ask questions and respond to them, and all the different ways that you can apply the perspectives that I think some people just don't think to do or don't know how to do. So it all adds into better communication and better connections, I think.
Exactly. I agree.
Well, Bradley, we will end it there. I want to thank everyone that was watching this first Facebook Live podcast. I'll do more of these a little bit differently in the future. Make sure you've subscribed to the page, and that'll make it easier to see the notifications in the future. And Bradley, I'll see you again someday, but for now we'll talk from a distance.
All righty. Thanks again, Curt. Thanks everybody for hanging on in there. And if you want to hear more stories or see more pictures of Curt, let us know, because we have bunch of pictures and videos. So appreciate it, Curt.
Thanks, Brad.
All right. Bye-bye.